America, land of the free and home of the brave, where equality, justice, and freedom have been the main focus since the beginning, or has it? Where American icons like Christopher Columbus, John Smith, and even George Washington really the people they say they were? This is the story of America, at least the America we have come to know, love, and learn about in our textbooks, a powerful civilization of culture and freedom. What people don't realize, though, is that America was built on stolen power.
If it were not for Ferdinand and Isabella, the King and Queen of Spain, wanting to find a quicker trade route to the Indies, the New World would likely have gone undiscovered, at least for a few hundred years, and it may have easily been the Chinese or Indians who discovered this new land. Ironically, Christopher Columbus landed in the Caribbean, but mistakenly thought that he had discovered the Indies, thus leading to him naming the natives there Indians.
The Indians were friendly, at least the ones Christopher Columbus came in contact with. Ecstatic about what he discovered, Christopher Columbus returned to Spanish to tell the king and queen of this new world. When King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella heard of this new land and the new people in it, they sent Christopher Columbus back with orders to explore with one rule: treat the natives respectfully.
Christopher Columbus, hailed as a hero by many, was the devil himself to some. He took land from the natives, and if resisted would crush the rebellion. It was no heartbreak to Columbus whether he destroyed a culture, and in his mind he was enacting the will of God to put these pagans in their place. This is how the Spanish viewed what they were doing. Columbus had opened the gates of hell for the Native Americans.
Within 30 years, a new kind of Spaniard arrived. The conquistadors brought the requests of God, glory, and gold to the New World. Even with the wealth of resources, the natives could not resist the Spanish. But why? The Spaniards were vastly outnumbered. What gave Hernando Cortez the advantage? The answer to this question is as simple as one little call. The Spanish, riding on their horses, were welcomed to the Aztec civilization as gods. Little did either side know that these interactions were exposing the natives to diseases they had never before encountered. Without the proper immune defenses, the Aztecs fell ill, killing up to 40% of the population.
Seeing the civil unrest, Cortez saw his chance to gain control. With the help of enemy tribes and unhappy citizens, Cortez led a revolt, killing the king and destroying one of the greatest empires in America. The Spanish would continue to colonize and exploit the people and resources of the region. In the pursuit of God, glory, and guns, the Spanish may have missed one crucial thing: sharing the love they so desperately preached about. But what about America, or at least what we know about as Americans? The civilization that the people of the United States have come to call America began 100 years after the Spanish had established control of Mesoamerica.
Unlike the Spanish colonies, the Americas had little to offer monetarily wise until the cash tobacco was introduced. The colonies of Roanoke, which was later abandoned, and Jamestown commonly did subsistence farming and trading, barely making enough to survive off of. Death rates were as high as 50%, but the promise of land, freedom, and opportunities brought more and more settlers to the New World. However, for a place of promised freedoms and opportunities, only the rich landowners and members of certain churches had the right to vote for government positions.
As the British influence increased in other parts of North America like Massachusetts, so did the diversity of the settlers arriving. The northern colonies like Massachusetts were more strongly based upon trade and good relations with the natives. The political system also differed from that of its southern counterpart, in that the people of New England's representatives were elected by members of the Puritan Church. While the elected officials in Virginia were elected by landowners, how could a colony be established on freedom while still taking away the voice of its people?
the colonies grew, the number of workers required to do labor grew also. To meet this new demand, the colonies started an importation of slaves into the colonies, especially in the South. One observer wrote about the Carolinas, "There are more Negroes in this country than the white men who founded it. The very people who had come to America to find opportunities and freedoms had completely taken it away from 1/3 of the population, with slavery not the only crisis facing the American colonies."
The Middle and New England colonies had relatively low slave populations, but they are far from the utopian religious centers people believe them to be. In the New England colonies, many wanted religious conformity, or at least relative conformity. Outsider religions that were not similar enough to the main beliefs of the Puritan faith were exiled to other colonies, or even imprisoned. Sometimes these instances could turn violent. Nowhere was this more evident than in Salem. Teenage girls who were deemed to be looking to cause trouble accused a slave named Tituba for pesting them with demons. Tituba said this was true, and she accused the others of being witches too. A great witch hunt followed, and over 100 men, women, and children were thrown in jail, with 20 of those accused being hanged, a majority of them being women.
Ironically, the Puritans had traveled to the New World for religious freedom, but would not allow certain groups to practice their preferred religion or supernatural activities. Also interesting is that many of the women accused of being a witch and hanged were taking over the husband's man job. Even though the trials may have been about bringing the ungodly their due justice, it seems to have been more about men protecting their place in the social structure. Even in the New World, women were second to men.
Though, at the turn of the 18th century, new ideas were sweeping throughout the colonies. The Age of Enlightenment had begun. With new thinkers like Benjamin Franklin and Sir Isaac Newton, many people questioned whether the church was worthy of the power it held anymore, which led to the northern colonies' decision to change their voting laws. Instead of having the church and state directly influence each other, as it had been, voting was put into the power of the free man, which was the name given to property and estate owners. However, slaves, women, and the poor still had no say in government.
New thinkers came new questions like, why should we be ruled by England? We have our own form of government, plus the essentials to be a self-governing nation. Tensions also grew because of the trading taxes on imports and exports from the mother country, and the growing black market that the colonists were involved in. The French and Indian War also showed the colonists that they could hold their own in a war. This, coupled with the fact that they felt dragged into the conflict unnecessarily, caused more unrest. Things came to a head in Boston.
The citizens of Boston were unhappy with a new act that put more taxes on items that they used every day. Along with this, the British occupied Boston, protecting their trade after the French and Indian War. A protest ensued, and soldiers were called in to keep the peace. For some reason unknown, shots were fired, injuring 6 and killing 5. The colonists used this event to make political propaganda that made many unhappy with the British. With more taxes continuously coming, especially tea taxes, tensions continued to rise. In 1773, colonists dressed like Indians boarded a British vessel that had a new shipment of tea. In protest to the new tea taxes, the colonists threw the tea into the Boston harbor. This infamous event, to be called as the Boston Tea Party, showed just how great the tensions were between the colonies and the mother country. Many of the wealthy and well-known colonial men met and discussed what to do about the taxes, and how they should approach the British. They were upset about taxation without representation. Knowing that there was no turning back, the colonial leaders drafted and signed the Declaration of Independence. This kicked off the American Revolution.
The revolution lasted 5 long years, the first two being especially hard on the colonial army. If it weren't for great American icons like George Washington, the colonists would have likely lost the war. But in order to fight a war, soldiers were required. Against all odds, the colonists, along with the French, won a strategic battle at Yorktown on October 19, 1791, forcing General Cornwallis of the British Army to fully surrender to the war, granting America their freedom. Hopes of a true freedom would finally become a reality.
But, as before, true freedom only applied to certain people. Even after thousands of women and slaves helped the revolutionary cause, they still were not given the rights of the average white male. In fact, the only slaves to actually have a better outcome because of the war were the ones who fought for the colonists. While some were given land and freedom, a majority of the slaves stayed slaves with no rights, and were generally still referred to as property. The social scope didn't change for women either, as they were still considered to be nothing but housewives, meaning that their whole life revolved around submitting to their husband and doing the work in and around the house. The only real change brought by the revolution was that the white man was receiving more rights and privileges.
Instead of freemen voting, every white male who was of age and had no criminal record could vote on representatives. It wasn't based off of church membership or land ownership. All that was required was being an American. The nation that the founding fathers had put in place, the white America, was beginning to take shape.
Our Constitution, ratified on June 21, 1988, states, "We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do obtain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." And establishing a more perfect union, America's great leaders, including George Washington himself, were pushing social classes to the bottom. This is even more prominent in the Jefferson era, which followed George Washington's presidency. Thomas Jefferson wanted America to have little federal government and give the states more rights and freedoms. These ideas were popular in the South, as the plantation owners wanted smaller government in hopes of fewer taxes and slave regulations, allowing them to amass more wealth.
America, long thought to be the land of freedom, equality, and opportunity, has never quite been what people thought it was. America was built on the back of hard-working men and women, with the rich and the wealthy dominating its history. Many Americans fail to recognize that the U.S. isn't the utopia that was taught about in grade school. It has dark sides, moral wrongdoings, and even selfish ambitions. If we do not heed the warnings of the past and learn from the mistakes of our forefathers, if we do not strive to better ourselves, we too might fall prey to the corruption that is stolen power.